All right. Welcome to the Parking Task Force of October 2nd. We're meeting at the Senior Center on Old Kings Highway. We have on our agenda that public may comment, but we don't have much public here, so we'll just go right in. Are there any comments from the board that they want to bring up? And seeing none or hearing none, we'll move into the minutes. Wayne, thank you for doing V2. Yep. You want to take it from there? Are there any comments for Wayne?
No, I would move that the minutes be approved as written.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, number 3 on the agenda is election of chair, vice chair, and secretary. I was hoping that Dale would be here, but he excused himself, and he did not respond to my question as to whether he would be willing to serve as vice chair or chair. If anybody wants to be chair, please be my guest. Otherwise,
You're doing a wonderful job, Timmy. You have my vote of confidence.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we elect the same officers that we've had in for the previous year.
I second.
Loss of service.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wayne, I
Chair, do you want the
didn't
chair?
ask you, but
Aye, but I don't want to be chair, no. No chair, vice chair.
Okay.
you do better work.
Yeah, you're doing the minutes. That's,
He's doing a lot, so.
I know he is, him and Bruce, actually.
So, review of correspondence. Earlier last week, I checked in with Town Hall. There was nothing in the emails. And we had a few snail mail sitting in the files down there, and I'm not sure when they arrived. There was one of interest, and I'm just gonna read it. I'm not sure it's within our jurisdiction, but I will respond to this person. It's from Alan Miner. I want to draw your attention to a defect in Wellfleet parking system rules regarding one specific length of road. I request that the parking task address this issue. I received violation number blah blah on Griffin Road, and it was circled as a tow zone. I appealed at the hearing on January 16th. I guess it must be July 16th. And there was no signage anywhere near the area, but the appeal was denied. Please see the attached form in which the violation is circled. The hearing officer told me that there is a restriction on the entire length of Griffin Island Road, as listed in the bylaws to be found on the town's website. My complaint is that this does not substitute for signage and is not a reasonable public notification. The only posted sign on the entire length of Griffin Island Road is on the left side near the entrance to Duck Harbor Road, which says no parking on this side. I was parked about a half mile away on the right in a small area used for years by local people for accessing a walking path there. I'm convinced that the parking ticket issued to me was improper and that the violation should not be issued at this location unless proper signage is installed. Then he or she goes on to say, I would appreciate a response to this letter. So now you're aware, and my suggestion is that I just respond and say, we got this letter and we're not part of the enforcement system, but appreciate your comment about.
Is there anyone we could forward that to? I mean, who is in charge of such things like signage and?
That would be the police department for starters, and I will forward it on to
Okay.
him. So, but that's where the person went.
Just as a point of information, once the hearings officer has denied an appeal, the next step is to file an appeal in Superior Court in Barnstable. So that you might want to add that to
To your
your
response?
letter.
I'm not sure I want to add that response.
Okay.
I think
Just
I'll let
letting
the
you
police
all know.
department do that.
Yeah. But he did ask within the letter to not have the ticket enforced, so his only recourse is Superior Court.
Okay.
Is there a particular hearing officer, the same every time, or it varies?
There is one hearing officer that's appointed annually by the town administrator to do the, not only the in-person hearings, but to, I would say, 80% of the appeals are in written form, and she deals with the written appeals as well.
Okay.
That would be Jeannie?
No, it's not Jeannie.
Oh, it's at the police station?
No, it's, this year it was Jennifer Kane and Town Hall.
Okay. I'll make sure somebody in town hall gets the response also.
Okay.
And the other thing I had was two other surveys that were part of the taxpayer survey. And I'll give those to you, Wayne, but I don't think you need any more data on taxpayer survey.
Yeah,
You could just change everything. those
got a
two.
bit of an overload there.
Yep. So, anyhow, we go on from there to update on the survey efforts. Do you want to project something?
Yeah, certainly. I Without Bruce being here, we can't do too much in the way of Survey Monkey, but I can run you through what's changed since our last meeting. Those of you who want to review it, I did take all the comments from the Marina survey and put them into a spreadsheet. They're not excessive, there's about 48 of them. And we can use that when we make recommendations, if any recommendations for the Marina. But basically, they related to dredging and the commercial use should be limited, so.
Will you send that around to everybody?
Yeah, I can send this around. I just, trying to see if there's anything else up here that popped up. Nope, nothing, okay.
There weren't that many comments.
No. Thank you all. Well, that's how many parking spaces we have. We are using, in any calculation I'm using the numbers that Suzanne has, which is 225 spaces at McGuire, Whitecrest Beach.
Wait a minute, you skipped from, did you just skip from Marina to?
Oh, Marina, yeah, okay. There's nothing, all right, we can go, all right, I'll stick with that. Okay, we'll go up to, now, at this meeting, are we going to try to make recommendations? Are we starting a list, or what's the?
We're starting a list,
Okay,
what I'm trying to do.
all right, here's the Marina parking survey. And if you want to go through a question, but there's only 10 questions, or 9 questions, really. We can go through it and just look at the various responses that came in.
Okay,
So basically, get to it here. Total responses, open, let's go. Oh, click. All right. Oops, sorry. There's some more information to add, but since it had been worked on recently, and that wasn't me, so I presume Bruce has done something, so I didn't want to mess up anything, so we haven't changed anything. It's currently closed. It isn't closed. Well, maybe he did close it. I guess he did close it.
did you get any materially different conclusions?
Nothing serious.
Okay, so
I think
we've,
this is it right here. Okay, here you are.
there you go.
So basically, it was, mainly pleasure craft people, 10, 11% commercial. The space need is typically, the most is 1, and typically when it's more than 3 or 3 or more is typically the commercial folks that are either running charters or people that are invited, family in, and they're going out for a longer cruise than 1 day, is my assumption. And then the parking time is pretty long. There's, if we put in a 2-hour parking limitation down there, most of the boaters would have a problem, so I think we'd have to have a sticker system to allow them to stay as long as they want. And then I was kind of surprised by the number of people that use their slip more than, 3 to 5 times a week and some daily. I was just, between the two of those, it's pretty high number, more than I would expect. Most people could find parking. The biggest problems that we had were weekends and nighttime when, near dinner hour, as well as when there's square dancing. If the tides are correct, the square dancing interferes a little bit with the amount of parking available. You know, a lot of times people won't be able to find parking, but as you can see, most people circled around. Very few gave up and left. Some go to Mayo Beach, others make their own parking spaces, as they said, so. And that was basically the marina.
Okay.
So I don't know, out of that, I don't know what you've come up with for potential suggestions to the town. I think there's been an emphasis at a number of our meetings from people that have attended, actually saying that our commercial people and the people running, commercial fishermen and the people running charters would like some designated spots near the gangway. And I don't know if that goes to the Marina Committee or where that goes as far as a recommendation or something like that.
Well, I think we can come up with our own recommendations that we give to the select board, and what they do with them is up to them, but.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people realize it's going to change dramatically when we dredge the harbor, but that was something they'd like addressed right away. I don't know if it's done with, you know, give them each one cone to put in a parking space and save it during the peak times or something along that line, or something. It's them and their guests typically. There was one suggestion when there's open boat slips that the captain of the charter boat and his guests park behind him in that spot, but I'm not sure if that violates the state regulations.
Or the marina regulation.
Yeah. I mean, people park there now anyhow, occasionally, I think, you know, when they're, it's nothing else, they park in those spots. But I think that was the biggest thing that came to me reviewing all the commentary, is we had to do something right away for the commercial folks.
Okay. You got anything in mind, Joe, or not yet?
I think we've covered everything.
Okay.
Next, we'll go to the big thing that's changed. We did do there's now a new summary of White Crest Beach. I'll send this around, but it's obviously truncated so you can read it. But basically what we did is we input the numbers that were provided by Suzanne as far as revenues for this year. And total revenues were $195,000 from parking at White Crest. And
That'd be the daily parking?
daily parking only, right? I calculated what I thought a turn ratio is, how many times does that same spot turn over? And I used two numbers. One is the 144, which is the number of parking spaces on the non-ocean side, and 225, which is the number with both sides, and came up with some numbers. So very rarely, you know, only on the weekends does it really turn, like a Saturday or a Sunday in some occasions, and obviously 4th of July, that time frame. Most of the other times you never have more than the use of the parking space more than one time in a given day by the pay people. Now that doesn't count the stickers, so, and it also, at times late in this day, I think they allowed people to park on the sticker side if it wasn't full, so that skews the numbers a little bit. Another thing that we've added to this, Will was nice enough to keep track of his wait times at Newcomb's Hollow, so we now have a website, a sheet for Will's Newcomb Hollow experience, so.
This
But,
could be a little novelette.
huh?
It could be a little novel.
So basically, he waited 463 minutes this summer, of which is 7.7
It's a
days.
dedicated beachgoer.
So he read a lot of books.
I have the New York Times and the Washington Post to read, so it's not a problem.
But it was interesting, you know, note, it was the days that were, you know, sunny and hot, and that's the longest wait periods, and a lot of times there were no wait. I mean, even at noontime, 10 o'clock, you know, the times we all think it's busy by, there was a lot of times where there was no wait, particularly during the week. So, and a lot of it's tide dependent too, but, which you can correlate when you want to. But I think from this spreadsheet, I generate that no one wants to change the rules at Newcomb. You know, the waiting in line is okay with everybody, and they don't want, from what I've gleaned, nobody wants shuttle buses to Newcomb, or not many people want shuttle buses to Newcomb.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Suzanne, how were those numbers, your income, compared to other years?
It was more than last year by about $20-something thousand, but I think that's weather-driven. It's still down from when we charged $20.
Really?
per vehicle, yeah. As soon as it went up to
What were we
$30 per vehicle, we got fewer people parking there.
Yeah. People are trying to find someplace
It's a
else.
law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
So is the gross number more now than when it was 20? Because
The
we're charging
dollars are
30?
more.
The dollars are more, but the cars are less.
But they're not $10 per vehicle more, because we still have fewer cars, even
Right.
though there's a
But it's
higher
more
price.
revenue than,
It's more revenue, yeah.
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 And I think of the 195,000, we had connectivity issues with the kiosks, and we're just letting people use the honor system, say they do it when they got back. So I think we lost $5,000 to $10,000 during that this summer, too.
Okay.
But we now have 2 antennas, and our connectivity is excellent.
It went well, okay.
Thought I had it here. Yeah,
Can I ask another question? Did it keep everybody off the road? Did it work efficiently the way you were hoping, that it got people into the parking lot, off the road?
It was really quick getting people into the pay side especially, and I know Wayne referenced that late in the afternoon, whenever, especially on a weekend, if the pay side was full and the sticker side was not, and they wanted to pay, we let them in the front lot.
Right.
There's no question about that.
Right.
But early in the morning, when it was first filling, we could keep the 2 streams of traffic separate. It was good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this is the daily revenues, and you can see in the latter months of, from August 1st on, that the
They go up.
traffic stepped up dramatically until you get to the week of Labor Day, which was kind of slow except for the weekend. All right. I think that takes care of that particular spreadsheet. We've got, that's all on this one sheet, Will's parking lot data. Yeah, that's just, and then the commercial vehicle data hasn't changed at all, so that's basically that spreadsheet. So if we want to go into, do we want to go into any other surveys, or this is the revenue, this was the handout that Suzanne gave us last time, I think. This is the number of stickers sold for the last 11 years, which has remained fairly stable.
And the mix has remained fairly stable, although there are more short terms.
Yeah,
So I think some of the top line that dips down is what? That's the 1 week?
yeah. There was a request that, I think we talked about this last meeting, for a 3-week sticker, but Suzanne says they can buy a 2 and a 1. There's no sense putting together a 3-week ticket for the few people that would probably buy one. I guess what else we have here? That's that. And then we have the commentary, oops, sorry, we already did that one. I have the commentary from, this is a little change. This is the comments to the, I'm going to switch over now to the taxpayer survey, which is the big one, where we got over 900 responses. And these are all the comments, same as last time, but I reshuffled them and just put them in order of what was the most common request. And it's reserved parking for taxpayers, no shuttle, and a shuttle
What
is
does
about-
that mean? No shuttle?
Was that?
What does no shuttle mean?
Don't put in a shuttle.
Okay?
Okay. There was a number of, commentaries of varying types about sharks, which, we're not addressing, but, that people were aware of it and were concerned. So there's almost a comparable number of people commented that they thought the shuttle was a good idea, but it was in limited. A lot of them would say only if it comes from downtown, not if it comes from Ocean View Drive, or if it comes from a third site, or put on the dailies in an alternative lot and let them shuttle over and let all the taxpayers use the beach parking lots all. So, so that, expansion was some desire to expand Whitecrest. Comparable number of people, didn't want expansion, but not as many, only 20. And a lot of us appreciated the survey. They liked being able to comment. Timing was a big thing. A lot of people commented on the fact that they adjust their life to getting to the beach and getting a parking space. They go early, they go late. It's life, that's the way it's been forever, in some cases, some days. A lot of folks thought the Beachcombers arrangement with the town of having the front lot and how they manage it was not fair to taxpayers. They'd like to return to the previous way, but that is a very expensive way because Suzanne, I think, has to have 3 people there to monitor it for 20 spaces. It's just not cost effective. Other people commented the fact that they thought that the town had done a good job, as well as the Beachcomber and the police at addressing the problem, but go early, go late, okay. Yeah.
Charter vehicles, it says limit or ban them.
Yeah, they don't want the charter vehicles, which we can't do. I think, this was obviously taken before we did what the police did this year, as far as having them come in at certain times, leave at certain times, boarding them, explaining everything to them. So I think if we were to do this survey again this spring, the charter vehicle commentary would diminish, because I think people are starting to realize that they do keep cars away. I mean, there was, 3,300 people that came in by shuttle, and that's the equivalent of, how many cars? You figure 3 people per car, 1,000 cars. Plus, it does keep the folks that like to drink a lot on a bus, not driving out on our roadways, so it's a safety issue also. There was a note about trash. I think a lot of it dealt with the problem last year with 4th of July. Obviously, they've made major strides to address that this year. And then I guess, and then some people want more spaces at Newcomb's. That's a big topic. And better cell service and the application. The application, they wanted some type of online application where they could check the status of the beaches. So then you have a whole host of single commentaries when you get down here, 1 and 2 people. But I'll send this around so you can all review it, and maybe we can make some commentary from this.
I saw a thing there with handicap. What did people
Yeah.
say about handicap act? I mean, I'm just
Was
curious. I mean, it is
oh,
what it is. It's
yeah,
a natural
yeah.
thing, but.
Well, people generally wanted more handicap spaces. They wanted us to put in a way to get down the steep hills, which is probably not feasible, because I think the pitch can't be more than 5 degrees or something. And also, in the marina survey, it was both. Some wanted, well, I think they have been relocated since last year, but some wanted less handicap spaces. They thought they overdid it. I don't know. Haven't they taken a couple out? Yeah, so I think that's been addressed too. So you have to always remember that this is always, last year's information. So whatever improvements we've made this year haven't really happened. People were, a lot of commentary some commentary that the tenants were very helpful, and no handicap. Yeah, where's that? Yeah, they need to drop off, need more handicap space at the ponds, ramp to the ocean. So,
And there were only 1 in each of those comments. So.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. But I listed them all so everybody gets a chance to comment. That's it on that. So I think that's done with all our Excel spreadsheets here. So we'll go back into SurveyMonkey, and we can go to the this one. We need the one that has 900. Here we go. Come on. Now, it's up to you whether you want to go question by question to give us ideas about things to think about for our recommendations.
Well, I've tried to put a bunch of those comments onto the sheets that we circulated to you, and you've got them on your desk, so.
Yep. So we can,
some
I think
highlights
Bruce
was-
has done some further analysis, because again, this has been updated since I was last on, and I'm not sure what he got around to doing, but I guess just going back to these Excel spreadsheets for a second, one other thing I wanted to discuss. I'm of mind, none of this stuff is on our website, linked to our website. I'm of mind to link it all to the website if anyone has any objections.
I'd like to keep it to be data until we're ready to have conclusions.
Okay, so we won't, after we have conclusions, we can post it. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fine. And I don't think there's anything in the word area, no. That's it. Okay, we'll go back to, okay, so how do you want to handle this, Denny, as far as walking through the,
Well, I think we've been through those surveys, and they haven't changed materially since we've looked at them.
no, they haven't.
So I'd suggest, if we can, that we go on to the page, not because I did it, but because I thought we needed it, which I call conclusions. And I put on there that these are just me. So you're not committed to these things, and I'm looking for more.
Are these called general observations?
Yep, general
Okay.
observations. And just obviously trying to get to conclusion here. And I certainly would like to do that.
Is that different than the findings to date on the
It's
similar?
similar.
All right, do you want me to pull it up on the screen, or does everybody have hard copies?
We've all got hard copies of general observations.
Okay, fine.
So, did you put that on the screen?
I can try, yeah, it'll take me a minute.
Don't bother.
I just have to find it in my emails. No, won't take long. But you can start talking and I'll find it.
All right, well, obviously, I'd love to get to a conclusion here sooner rather than later, and I think we've been through an awful lot of data. It was hard to get some of this data onto a page, and so if there's something that you don't agree with, please let me know. But I'll just, it may be boring, but I'll go down them one by one. Number one, we talk about parking requirements are everywhere, and we concluded that the enforcement was flexible, but we've got the parking data, parking ticket data for this year, and I'd like to compare that to last year, and I just didn't have time, but. The next one is town center parking availability is only a challenge on limited number of days in the tourist season and for popular events, and that's really what the police department's told us. So it's not like it's an all-the-time issue. The town center parking seemed lighter in 2019 because there were a couple of things that happened. Number one, the farmer's market was moved. Actually last year, but, and the lighthouse closed. Again, these are observations from the police department.
I do think the farmer's market moving made a big difference.
It's on Wednesdays, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It did.
Then we've got the conclusion that we've talked about all along, that it is desirable to have another large parking area in the downtown area. But there does not, but no site appears feasible in a convenient walking distance. I can tell you, I've looked all over the maps and looked all over the aerial photos and all that, and I might be able to find 5 parking spaces behind Town Hall, but that's about it. If there are other spaces, you're getting into existing dedicated space like Mayo Beach, like Bakerfield, and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Does anybody have suggestions of where to look? Where's it hidden? Yeah. So anyhow, all right, so, but we can't do anything about it. There are larger venues, like restaurants, galleries, theaters, wedding venues, and lodging that do not have sufficient parking areas. And therefore relying on town facilities. Permit granters, and related to that, I'd reorganize it a little bit, but my thought is that permit granters, especially special permits and business licenses, need to be evaluating parking availability when granting permits. And I said here, you know, who does the sign-off for this? I don't know on the business licenses, but I know they go through Town Hall, so. And as far as the zoning board of appeal, they are looking at this stuff, but sometimes people come in for expansions, and to me, that ought to be a very key part of anybody getting more tables or whatever.
No, there, go ahead.
All right, going on, oceanside erosion is a major long-term concern. I sent you two sources of data, but the Massachusetts Energy and Environment Department sent around something saying that the average rate at Newcomb's Hollow is 4.8 feet per year. And since a parking space is 9 feet wide, that's 1.9 years to lose a row of parking. So obviously a big concern. And then I examined some maps, and Ocean View Drive surface is 71 feet from the top of the dune along Ocean View Drive. That's about 15 years at 5 feet a year. So that's a concern. The Beachcomber pays rent for town space and provides bus service from Whitecrest for all. I don't think, we've heard a few times that people don't have to go into the Beachcomber. That's not a tying arrangement. The marina parking area serves as an overflow area for the town center and for Commercial Street. The marina parking area serves many masters, marina users, both pleasure and commercial people, and the harbor master operations, the area businesses, and the beach permit office, and the shellfish warden and commercial deliveries and square dancing, and a meeting point for taxis and for walkers. We may need to decide priorities and reserve spots. Comments about marina parking efficiency, create more spaces within the site, and better signage have been mentioned a few times. Concern for more marina parking needs if there's dredging. And then there is evaluate moving the beach permit office. And we've talked about two locations. One is Lawrence Road and the other is Mayo Beach. I understand Lawrence Road has been dedicated to the affordable housing people, but I'd sure like to make a push against them to. Yes, please, have a microphone.
They were asked to to not be able to use all of the 9 acres, and that there was that possibility where the police station was, to keep that possibly for beach stickers or beach parking or a shuttle, to wait on that, because, yeah, so they were asked. I haven't seen the RFPs coming out, no request for, whatever, when do they, yeah. that's
RFP
coming.
For the
proposal?
plan, for their
Yeah.
plan, for their design?
Yeah, it's coming out, I think, soon, but there should be something available, something left for the future,
Okay,
Right.
hopefully.
Mr. O'Connell? Just as a point of information, I put in a capital budget request for $250,000 for fiscal '21 to, if it comes to pass, fund a prefabricated building for that location and a tight tank.
great. Do you
What
want
would
any,
that be for?
the beach permit office?
To
Oh, for the
move
beach
beach sticker
permit office, I
sales.
see.
And it would make sense because we also use the building for winter storage, to have a permanent building elsewhere for those two purposes. Building?
Any comments on that? I like that idea, and I don't know, if we need to come together and say that should happen.
Well, we could say that we all
Recommended.
agree it's a good
Okay?
reserve, something to keep in reserve.
And that, to me, is preferable to Mayo Beach.
Yes, because that is a public.
Given the climate change and the rising seawaters, I would not advocate any investment in infrastructure at Mayo Beach.
The beach, right.
Okay. We've had enforcement comments, and defer that until I give you the analysis of this year's parking tickets. But I think my sense is that it was not a big issue, especially downtown. I talked to the young woman who was doing the bicycle pedaling as long as she was there, but she got called out early. to do other jobs on the police department, but our biggest issues were handicap parking, people taking over handicap parking lots, so,
That's a big fee,
yep.
big fine,
$300.
yeah. No, I know, but it's, it's on your books, it's
It's
on
$300.
your, I know, but it's a good deterrent, let's put it that way.
That data
We
is
have that
available.
data. We have that data,
We have that.
55, I believe it was 55%.
Well,
to date, this year.
Yep. Well, plus another 20-odd% get voided or whatever. They don't,
The appeal,
Appeal.
it's like an appeal,
I don't
so
know
they
if
got
that's
written
appeal
up.
or written whatever.
Yeah.
It's closer to 75%, I guess.
I mean, is it possible if someone's just to tow them away? I mean, that would really, that would get my attention.
Well, I have to tell you, I
If
had
I-
experience
if
with
I
a handicap, and that's how I found out.
If I could, many, many times, the people who are parked in handicap spots actually possess a placard but forget to put it out, so I would hesitate to tow them for that reason.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to be nice.
All right. We've obviously had some comments about signage, and I don't have any specifics, but just the idea of more signage is always hard, but I think it's necessary. And then I have just stated it, that fee-based parking in the downtown area is not recommended. Generally, it's not needed, and implementation and administrative costs would likely not be recovered. I don't think it would create any more turnover either. So, anybody got problems with that statement?
None, not at all.
And I'm assuming, I haven't looked at the reports in a while, that the merchants didn't want that either.
That's correct. We had that question. I think maybe it is a couple pages back or whatever in the business survey, as I called it. We had that question.
Have we talked about pay at
Pay
the?
parking. We asked that question, and it was turned way down.
Yeah, just a thought, Danny, you might want to put that note in that the merchants didn't want it either.
Thank you.
Put it
Okay.
down there.
Yeah, we had asked the question of downtown parking fees. We had 26% agreed and 60% disagreed.
There you go.
So, yeah, thank you, Will. Good point.
Is there anything mentioned about some sort of fee structure given to the marina? And I'm wondering, do we put this on? I mean, it just seems to me that there is a lot of use there by a lot of different businesses, and, we're looking at these shuttles, so you got 3,500 people off these buses. It's a lot of people on our poor little dunes.
Well, we
tromping
need
up
to-
and down.
We need to do something about the bus
Yeah,
movements.
get a fee from the buses for
And
that many
tell
people.
them
Or
where to
are
park.
you going to pursue that, Suzanne?
As a matter of fact, I have a report on that. I think the meeting in July, you asked me to go forward with that. I met with Jay from the bus company, Cape Destinations.
I was just
Ding,
going to
ding,
say,
ding.
Kate, that's- yeah.
And Raphael from Cape Cab, who is also Funk Bus. And I'm going before the school committee next Tuesday afternoon to see if they're willing to have their location used for bus parking on Saturdays and Sundays. And using the figures that Wayne and the police department put together from this summer, each bus company, they both suggested, and I think it's great, instead of doing a per diem fee and running around and checking, make sure people have paid, would be to get a seasonal fee based on the previous season's actual bus parking, and to charge a lump sum at the beginning of the season from each bus company, and then make dailies available for the random people who show up. But I think the administration would be much simpler, because they're about 80-90% of our volume up there.
And they would then turn that cost over somehow in their
They said
ticketing or
when they know
whatever?
about it, it'll be at that rate, it ends up to very little per capita for them to add to their lease fees.
Yeah, to each person,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
I think
What is
that's,
the rate that they're talking about? What are they talking about?
Oh, they're
charging
thinking
for
between
a
5,000 and
bus?
6,000 per company for them on their rates for the summer, for 2 days a week. And I know it's on school property, so I can't
Saturday, Sunday?
say Saturday and Sunday, with the exception of the Pan Mass Challenge weekend where they're set up as a water stop up there.
Right.
So that would be and I would personally like to see the buses. I don't think we're going to have more buses. I don't think we're going to have fewer buses but doing this, but we're going to keep them from parking or trying to find parking places where people drive by and think, oh, look at all those buses, we got to stop the buses. I would like to just regularize the location, and people will realize that we're not just ignoring it and paying attention to it.
right.
I had somebody tell me that Funk Bus makes a regular run to Cove Shopping Center. Does anybody know about that?
What's their destination?
Is it to the
Dunkin'
Cove
Donuts.
With the Dunkin' Donuts,
Dunkin' Donuts parking area?
Well, if they don't now, as soon as a marijuana shop opens, they probably will.
I think they make a run because a lot of people park there and they pick up their private charters there. I don't think it's anything that the owners there are in charge of, but people have learned, say, we'll park at Dunkin' Donuts, you can pick us up.
Does Funk Bus make a special charge for that?
I'm not aware, that wasn't part of our discussion because it's not on town property.
Right.
oh, yeah.
They're not doing it for free.
Pardon?
They're not doing it for free.
No,
Yeah.
No, they're not,
but
but,
on the other hand, our discussion dealt only with town property.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, the owner of that property did talk with the police this summer and raised a level of concern about the use of his lot, and I think the response was, we can't enforce regulations that aren't posted, so they suggested that he post some regulations, so if they could enforce it, they would. So,
Okay, Ocean Beach parking was documented in 2019. Beach Administration and Police Department expended staffing effort, which needs to be continued. Higher usage periods are anticipated, and staffing is enhanced. Police focused on Cahoon Hollow rather than the Route 6 intersection, and we heard that from Lieutenant Hurley because of staffing concerns, but I think we're all agreed that the extra effort at Cahoon Hollow was definitely worth it, so.
What does that mean, the Cahoon Hollow rather than Route 6?
Okay, that sentence is in there, I'll take it out, but.
I'm just wondering what
Oh,
you meant by.
What it meant is, Mike Hurley told us that he was restricted on staff, and so he chose to spend the staff at Cahoon Hollow.
Gotcha. Instead of
Rather
on the
than
highway.
at LaCounts and the highway.
Leave that in there.
That's their discretion, so. All right, all beach areas have been reviewed for expansions, taking into consideration town property ownership. I assume you all got my maps. There's an expansion possibility at Whitecrest. There may be some expansion possibility at LaCounts, Mayo Beach, and Duck Harbor. And I didn't make any recommendations on that, but frankly, I think we're fine the way we are. Want to comment on that?
I guess, other than the inevitable loss of parking
right.
15 years out, or 10 to 15 years out.
Yeah, there'll be
He's
other people on this parking committee by then.
starting to come up with a plan for maybe expanding that lot. May not be a bad idea, or.
And if I might, if expansion is desirable at those, let's say the two ocean beaches, that LaCounts, by switching it from parallel parking to angle parking on the south side, and at Whitecrest, it'll never be cheaper than now or next year to put it into place. You're never going to get a lower price per parking spot to do this.
Right.
So it isn't as if we need it now, but we could very well use it in 5, 10, 15 years,
Right.
20 years. We've had, and maybe with climate change, we won't have the northeasters that we used to have, and you lose the dune on a regular basis. That may change too, but we don't know until 10 years in.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean.
Have
what
you
we-
done a feasibility study of parking at LaCounts?
No, I put that on the shelf. A couple of people I put it to thought it was a great idea. A couple of people gave me the big eye roll, so I've sort of put it in my file, so I won't lose it, but I haven't done anything official.
I think it would be good to see what's feasible there, because I think you're constrained. And the other thing was, LaCounts filled up once this year?
There's no bar there.
Yep, I know
I
that's
mean,
a
sandbar.
Yeah.
That's a
Not-
transition.
not-
Real bar would help.
adult libation bar, no.
You could have the,
I mean,
But it could
Canteen
switch. If a
down
bar moves in, Newcomb Hollow will be empty at midday on a low tide, and there'll be a line down LeCount Hollow Road waiting to get into McGuire's. So
Well,
you never know.
When you look at our survey data from last year, not this year, but last year, LaCounts was busy.
right.
It's a never
it was a
ending
great-
change
it
out
was-
there.
Yeah, Newcomb really changed to be almost like a kid beach, when the tide was out and you had the little pools there. I mean, it was quite nice.
And at the end of the summer, when we had the buoy, it pinged on the tagged sharks, people appreciated that as well.
Yeah.
how many sharks were pinged, do you know, roughly this summer?
Well, they seem to have favorites. One day, we pulled people out of the water 5 times, and then it would go 3 days with no pings. So it's really, it was in such a short time, it really doesn't give you a lot of data. It gives you how well does it work, but it doesn't give you the pattern
Right.
data.
And it's not every shark that's around, because.
And
not
there
every
were some
shark's tagged.
codfish who are also tagged for population studies, who set off the ping, who really liked the buoy.
Oh,
Would
yeah,
hang
because it's
around for an
something-
hour,
yeah.
and it pings every 60 seconds.
Can you tell a difference between a
Well,
shark?
we have the numbers. The numbers come up on the email that comes into the iPhone.
Oh.
And we have a list of shark numbers and shark names, actually,
And could you tell the difference between a cod and a shark?
only by looking at our list of numbers.
So they are identified individually.
All tagged animals, no matter what their species, are under the same identification system.
Like a little.
It's a series of numbers, but
security number.
we, Dr. Scommel and his assistant trained us how to recognize the individual numbers, so.
So you knew, if it was a cod that's hanging around there, you could say, we don't
We
have to
never,
have this
we didn't
going.
pull people out of the water for the cod.
Right, good. So you knew enough, okay.
I think according to the presentation they made on 60 Minutes this week, that they've tagged 200 white sharks so far in the last couple of years, I guess.
I have a list of 196 sharks.
Yeah.
All your friends.
So
Well, do we want to do something about this?
I also want to go back to, I'm going to have another discussion here. So we have an increased thing of weddings and all this other stuff. So we're dealing with the buses coming in with for the beach. Do we, is there any reason why we should not or should look at, people are having an event, they're bringing in this bus, the bus is gonna be hanging around, it's, sitting in Main Street there for a while until people get on and off, blocking everybody up, and so should we consider saying to whoever is hosting these things that they should build in a parking fee that we collect by event, they register those events and, I'm just thinking of some kind of, and I'm not saying outrageous fee, but some kind of fee that really can help us handle the amount of people that are handled and whatever we have to do to infrastructure during the winter and road repairs or whatever is helped by that increased use of people. And that might even help go towards a marina fund or something, some of that could go towards the marina because they really are sort of handling a lot of, not just marina traffic. they're handling.
Buses for which event?
You know, well, there's weddings and, you know, when, I mean, there was one week and we had like 3 or 4 weddings, so there's all these people. And now we're charging, you know, people coming in to use the beach, so there's gonna be like a fee put on to that, you know, that service. So when people are coming in for weddings and the buses are hanging around and
Are you talking about the marina lot or the,
I'm just talking about looking at events and where these, how is that all handled? I mean, you know, we're looking at the beach.
That fee that you're talking about for the beach people is gonna be passed on through the
Right.
the bus businesses, so the customers won't know that they're.
Right, so maybe there should be some, you know, if we talk to like whoever handles these weddings, Pres Hall, or if the wedding's gonna be at the Well, or if the wedding's gonna be at wherever we have weddings. Well, Chequasit Neck has parking, but should there be some sort of built-in, like a user fee to the bus companies that are engaged in that? I mean, I'm just throwing this out there
If I
because it
think
seems
about
like
it
some
more-
things are being,
when you have, well, actually, you don't have to, if you're having the wedding on the beach, then you have to get a permit to use town property. You know, and there could be a fee there. But I have to think about, but when you use, you know, either the church or Pres Hall or the Well or something, they don't come before us when they're getting married there. So, yeah, what?
Would you rather have all the people that are going to the wedding to come down in their
no,
in their
not on their
cars?
own
So
car,
If it's a wedding of
no.
100 people, would
I'm
you
just-
rather have
I'm just
50 people
looking
in
at
cars
how
show
to
up into
augment-
town center?
how to
Or would you rather have
augment
one big
revenues.
bus?
Sorry.
I don't think
I
there's
guess
that.
my comment on that, Dan, would be that these buses don't bring them from off Cape to these weddings. They all congregate in Wellfleet to go to that wedding. And then they may park at the marina, and the buses may come from there, or they may park at the shopping center there by Dunkin' Donuts. And so I think that's the question.
Does anyone have a handle on how many buses we're talking about? I mean, I just hate to, I don't think it makes sense to set up this whole system if it's just a handful of buses. But I don't know how many buses there are.
And the buses become safety issues, and I think the police stay on top of that.
I mean, I just know that you know, because I changed road to walk on a lot, so I was down more on the Bay side in Chequasit Neck, and it did seem like there were a lot of buses, and there was one point I said to myself, gee, this is like being at a national park that I was at, where these, you know, buses that are designed to be on this very steep road, very narrow road, and they looked kind of like that coming along Chequasit Neck Road, and I'm like, this looks very precarious here. And it just seemed like, you know, some weekends, it just feels like there's a lot of them kind of circling around up there by Great Island, like, where are we going to land until we can, you know, pick up our people again? And it just seemed like, you know,
Really?
What about the
Going
DPW
up by-
parking? Didn't we
If I
talk
could.
about the DPW parking lot maybe for weekends? Because
That's an idea that has not been looked at, but I did forget to add that Jay and Raphael volunteered to send me a list of other bus companies that they know frequent Wellfleet, both for town property and for private events. And if we reached out to all of them and explained there was paid parking available, and also Jay and Raphael's companies will provide portable toilets, they said the drivers would much prefer a place they're wanted with bathroom facilities and the ability to sit there and, you know, read their newspaper, eat their lunch while they're waiting to pick up their charges. And it would be, I think we would maybe cover most of the sort of like roaming buses by offering them this opportunity.
Part of the survey, we kept track of every company that came, so,
But we only did that for Cahoon Hollow.
Yeah.
Kahuna, all
beaches,
right. We
right.
didn't do it for the other areas,
There's
you're right.
the luxury buses that bring, but anyway, I do think, and the other thing is the whole bus wedding party, wedding guest press at the marina is going to change because this is the last season that the Holden Inn will do weddings.
Oh.
But they're
So
still going on at Chequesset. And
They're going on to
Chequesset
Chequesset, and they're
runs
moving to other
buses.
venues, which could create more problems than the Holden Inn presented at the pier. So I think that's something we won't know until we see it happen next summer. So I wouldn't come up with a solution until we've defined the problem.
All right, I'm just looking at,
You're looking at revenue streams. It's a
I'm
good
looking at
thing,
revenue
Sheila.
streams, that's all, I'm just trying to pluck them out of the air, and I know that,
Well, I do think that these weddings that come in that are big weddings and other events consume parking spaces and at some locations, and we ought to be sensitive to that. And they ought to be sensitive to it, so.
right.
Does anyone know what the maximum capacity of any of the facilities is as far as wedding guests?
So one restaurant just had 160 people at one of their weddings.
Okay.
I think Pres Hall is probably about 100 on each floor, but if you're doing catering, then you can't, there's less. Where do they get married? Pres Hall, The Well,
Chequesset Neck Yacht Club.
Chequesset, but
They have their own
they
deal
have
there,
pretty
though.
much have,
Well,
yeah.
they don't have
I'm
enough.
aware of a wedding at the Holden Inn that had 320 people.
Yeah,
Wow.
They all parked at the pier.
yeah.
At the pier, right.
That was this summer?
There'll be different parties, like you'll see at different restaurants, that there will be a funk bus dropping maybe, like the bridal party out for the Friday night rehearsal dinner, rehearsal drinks, or something like that.
Where are they collecting the people for those?
Probably from inns or houses or hotels, and then going. There's something I wanted to comment on about that. What was that? Yeah, it could be, we could find out from hotels and inns what they're suggesting, or if they could include that. And I know that there are times I've seen just the buses in another parking lot just idling, and it's a hot summer's day, and the drivers aren't going to turn off their air conditioning while they wait 2 to 3 or more hours for
Right.
the group. But yeah, we could have them up by the school possibly.
All right.
DPW.
That's typically the smaller buses, I think, because the school buses aren't air-conditioned, but and I saw them on 4th of July weekend, they were grouped behind Dunkin' Donuts, and then they got all in one bus as opposed to keeping all their own buses. They got into one of their smaller buses that did have air conditioning.
Yeah, that's not good either, having that run all the time. Well, it's something that we'll have to think about down the road. I mean, that's, and how that
How do you
happens.
summarize what that is?
So is there any limit for bus parking at the marina, like a time limit? I mean, that's, or charging for like over 2 hours, you're dropping
No.
people off? I mean, that seems like a fairly easy thing to work on, because it's a limited area. And I know that, you'd have to have somebody there, or were there a lot
I think
there?
most of the buses have parked at the Dunkin' lot. Maybe a few at the marina, but they're mostly at the Dunkin' lot.
Yeah, and also, I assume you could just prohibit bus parking at the marina. I mean, that seems like a very logical thing to do,
I don't think the buses are the big issue, it's all the cars that get collected
Oh, I
there.
got you,
Yeah.
That would be my
And then
guess.
the bus picks them up there?
Yeah.
I think we should limit the time at the marina.
We have a limit of 2 hours, but how do you enforce it?
First, yeah.
And also, if it is a wedding and they're using the marina, and there's say there's a 300-person wedding, and a lot of cars are parking at the marina, what I'm trying to say is when that type of event happens by whoever, that they know they have to, when they're charging, this is what it's gonna cost for this wedding, they're adding that into into the whole package fee, because that amount is gonna go to the town, or go to the marina, the marina fund through the town, or to whoever is hosting, that many cars, so that at least there's something there to,
I don't know how you get that regulated. I mean, you don't, at the select board level, you don't approve a wedding at Chequesset or,
Is there a size at which they have to have a policeman present? Maybe we can monitor it by when they hire a policeman.
To do what?
It's being security at the wedding. But then we'd know that there's a wedding happening with X number of guests.
I can't recall any bylaw that says that.
I mean, this is just one more of many constituents who use our pier municipal lot.
Right.
And I think they all have to be looked at together in a few years.
I agree.
And priorities established at that time.
And that's the comment at the top of the next page.
Okay. All right, I just threw it out there, as long as we're looking at
Need
it.
to decide parking availability objectives, and there were two things that I had, you know, there really one point, do we try to target peak parking, or do we try to go for a limited amount of undersizing? Meaning that you can't satisfy them all. And we know that there are some days when we can't satisfy them all.
Yeah, and I think even though the shuttle is not desired right now, it is something that's going to have to be looked at. I mean, I was at Ballston Beach recently, and the tide, you know, there was like no beach there. And when we get to a point where we lose a beach, you know, I mean, things are going to be rough.
Or easier.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just have to think of other wonderful things about Wellfleet that everybody loves, but,
We'll ban low tides because there's too much beach.
yeah. That's the only time you can do it.
Okay.
It was really amazing how Ballston really has no beach.
Well, I'm trying to get some things that we can give into a report to the selectmen, or report to whomever. If there are things, I've made this appeal before, if there are things you want to see in there, please let me know. The next couple pages that I have in that general observations line are the surveys, just so that people have them. Tried to summarize. I used a lot of what Bruce Ketcher did to try to summarize, and it's hard because there's just a potload of data. So I do think we don't need to pay attention to the survey that we tried to do with the transient beach sticker people. So, you know, let's not waste any time on that. But the rest of them, I got to say, I really had hoped that there'd be more response from the business community. And I think the marina is an ongoing process. I know personally, I didn't have any trouble finding a parking space this year. So, and I think that comment came from other people too.
Yeah, I
So-
don't think it was probably as bad as it was the year before. I remember the year before was pretty bad.
Yeah, because I regularly attend and work at the Harbor Stage Company, and every once in a while you had someone show up a little bit late saying they had trouble finding a spot. But considering how many nights a week that's open, it really didn't happen very much that I observed. So people did find parking spaces.
Yeah, and you know, and I've done it myself. If you go to the Beachcomber, not the Beachcomber, bookstore, you know, I tend to park across the street at Mayo Beach. I guess I can walk right across the street, but you don't realize there's a lot of parking behind the Beachcomber that I don't think always gets used until there's absolutely, the bookstore that absolutely has no, you know, if there's nothing, then people will say, oh, maybe if I drive into the bookstore, and then they see there's a big lot in the back.
The parking adjacent to the bookstore, that people park against the fence that's Baker's Field, is on town property.
Oh,
Oh,
the whole lot or
there
just
you
half?
Not the whole lot, just that section. Yeah.
well,
Yep.
that's something for you to think about, Suzanne.
The other thing during the day, that the lot around the theater does not get much use, even though the rest, everything else might be full. I think people think it's private parking or something.
Yeah, I didn't realize it till I sat on this board, and now I park there regularly when I go walking around,
Good.
around the harbor.
Yeah, it's town property. So one of the things I heard, and this, maybe there should be some kind of a meeting with business owners, from the selectmen, but that restaurants were running valet parking. Like if you came in, I don't want to mention names, but you came in and there wasn't any parking at the restaurant, then they would have someone, I don't know whether they use their own car, your car, and they would park your car down
At the marina.
at the marina. And while you went in and ate, and then they'd go pick it up or something. So that, I don't know how,
Oh, see,
that would have been in
needs to
the
be-
evening, and I don't know if anybody would have counted that or how bad it would have been, but, maybe it's time that we did talk to the business owners and just said, this is a problem and you have, to work it out, not to necessarily charge them, because that's not going to fix the problem, but, maybe they can shuttle them or valet them somewhere else besides the marina, which has been
And I think
suggested, like
we're
the
always,
church, the
Plenty of room at night.
DPW. What?
I said
Whitecrest,
Whitecrest has
shuttle them
plenty
up
of
to
room at
White,
night.
valet them out to Whitecrest.
I think we're always dealing with the variables over which we have no control, weather being one.
Yeah.
Tide.
Sandbars.
So there's a demand at the marina with favorable boating and weather conditions and limited parking for businesses in the theater. But if it's raining, that alters that situation. The same with downtown. If there's a wedding at Preds Hall and it's a cloudy or rainy day, then a lot of people will be down there shopping.
Right.
As opposed to a nice sunny day when they're at the beach or elsewhere.
Yeah, and
Just a note, I know at Payomet, they had cancellations for people worried about Triple E.
right.
And so if Triple E, I mean, I'm not sure where that's headed, but there were people that tried to get their money back because they didn't want to be exposed. So,
Right, and there are a lot of mosquitoes there. I avoided it myself,
Okay.
because they love me, those mosquitoes.
I'll take another round on trying to summarize this stuff, but we'll keep moving forward.
Well, I don't think it's bad to come across with general observations, and these are, and I think Joe put it right, there are a lot of variables that we don't have control over, but we're going to have to address and face as reality. As we shrink, they're going to become more pronounced, and then it will force different actions, and, maybe none of us will be sitting at these tables then, but they are things that we have to start really having conversations about and being aware that things will change, whether we want them to or not, and how is that going to go down with everybody? And, yeah, I think it's part of the 7 plagues. I think that we're going through the 7 plagues.
I think we've
Tripoli is the next one.
addressed it in the past, but I think the 2 churches downtown are not an option, is that correct?
I know one fairly well.
Yeah.
And the idea of dedicating parking there is just not going to work.
What about at night, like if they did the valet kind of thing from there? If you do the valet, you have to have a go-kart or something to go get the car.
I mean, that obviously could be looked at, but and it would need to be, there are priority schedules.
Right.
Somebody's got a big session going on there, and we rent out the hall and all that,
Yeah,
we'd want those people to have parking first.
absolutely.
And frankly, we can't park all of those people. So-
Yeah.
Right.
So they end up, not as far as the marina, but town hall, so.
yeah, it's going to be a real problem if some, for your board or ours, anyone, if you start picking winners and losers in terms of parking. That's not going to go over well.
One person had mentioned to me in regards to the commercial use of the pier lot is that at night, a section be set aside for parking for the restaurants, but they pay for placards that they give to the people that are there to hang on their mirror, that they've paid $5 or $10 or whatever it is to use that space. Or, I don't know, a gate or whatever, that'd be pretty expensive, but they just said there could be some system where you could make money and at the same time, designate a section of the parking for commercial use.
The comment about the merchants and the need for parking, I'd like to include in that there are 450 slips and moorings.
Right.
And when we get dredging, there's availability to add on an additional 50 moorings. And we have economic studies done by the state that show that in a welcoming harbor, boaters come in and they spend a good deal of money in town. They eat, they drink, they shop, they go to the galleries. So I think that's another strong economic factor when we look at the need for merchant parking. There's also that need, for boaters.
Right.
Not only to keep the enterprise fund healthy, but to allow them the pleasure of spending money in our town.
Right. And that is going to have to be,
Wasn't that your guys' job, is to figure that out?
no, I think that's a discussion, I do think it's worth having a discussion with the players that are down
Yeah.
at the marina and say, this is the beginning of a conversation.
Yeah,
And again, it's not a problem on September Monday evening,
Right.
um,
But August,
but
it
yeah,
is.
if you guys, Marina Advisory Committee, and you guys can make suggestions for that designated spaces. I believe that the shellfish inspections have moved over to Indian Neck to free up parking. Is
Why
that
is that?
true? Do you know about that, Joe?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
You
Or
know anything,
loading and
Jim?
unloading has moved over to Indian Neck rather than right at the town pier, but I'm not
I
sure.
think they're still unloading at the
They're
town
still
pier. They
unloading.
may be
Yeah, but are they?
unloading on Indian Neck as well.
I think some of them went to Indian Neck, but there's still some that from that area, like
So they
Powers
didn't vote.
Landing. Well, maybe they did, I don't know if they ended up doing
They were
one
gonna,
at Powers
because they were
Landing,
gonna
too.
try to get, because they're having trouble parking, so that would be a help.
Is that a once-a-day event? I mean, as far as the shellfish truck coming in to pick
Depends
up?
on the tides.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
all the time.
What about, this would be a private venture, but using pedicabs, like they do in Provincetown.
No.
We ha-
But where are they gonna park? You still have to park
Well,
somewhere
we haven't
to
talked
get the
about that,
pedicab.
the sand pit area, and I know that's been a little hands-off because the DPW uses it, but
Yeah.
isn't there like, want me to be quiet?
No,
It's one of the ones I
Acres,
identified.
right, down there,
Yeah,
that isn't.
it's been talked about. It's been talked about.
if we
Shouldn't
use
have to hot
that,
top it, they could gravel it, right?
gravel or
Well, it's pretty
shells,
firm, yeah.
Yeah.
We certainly don't have the land for parking that Provincetown had, but I think it's worthy to note that as Provincetown provided more parking, they hired a good deal of additional personnel to manage it.
A lot of their lots are very small, yeah.
Janet, do you have any idea when this dredging might be done, so Joe can get his boat in and out?
Yes, I do. October 1st of 2020, the federal channel is going to start where the first project for the Army Corps to start. So October 1st, if all goes well, if there's still funding. I mean, it's all set, but you never know. And then the following year, the Secretary Keneally was just down and we had a meeting at the harbor, and that he knows we want to be ready to go at the first opportunity in 2021 for the pier and the state
Area 1,
Area 1 to be,
around the
dredged.
slips, and then Area 2
So-
the following year.
yeah.
The
And- and-
key is the matching funds from the town. So,
Yeah.
you The town allocated $7.5 million, but that figure is based on the evaluation of several years ago, when the total cost was $15 million. And the Army Corps engineers are telling us at least 10,000 cubic yards a year continue to come in. So that price may very well go up several $million.
And then the Cape Cod Commission is also working with us, and we're working with them, buying our own dredge that would then maintain it, so that would also, and also having other towns possibly use that. So we'll see, but it should start October 1st.
This October 1st or
No,
next?
Next
So
year,
it'll be a year from this month,
yeah.
a
But
year from
then-
yesterday.
They actually come in a little earlier. They're dredging in Plymouth, and so they had to remove all of the moorings from the harbor in mid-September because
Wow.
the contractor brings in all the equipment ready to go, hit the ground running. Because there's that variable October, November, December of the weather. And then the ban for flounder comes in, and the right whales after the first of the year.
Is Chipman's Cove part of the process?
That's Area 2.
That's two, okay.
That's the following year. That hasn't been dredged since 1957.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Do you reseed it with oysters after that? How do they, or do they save them? Do they save the oysters somehow, or do they reseed it once they're done?
I think the operation has to shut down.
Yeah, they're going to have to move all their cages and,
Okay.
that are in the, it's,
Yeah, it would be awful if these dredges get all gummed up
Yeah.
with
so everything has to be removed. That's in the
shellfish
area, certainly.
baskets out there.
Like Herring River
that,
area
get lost.
doesn't have to be removed. I don't think that won't be
Well, there's
affected.
two factors in that. One is, we are hoping that the shellfishing community would be receptive to shutting down earlier because the state study shows that one of the dangers to their livelihood is the encroachment
Yeah.
of the mayonnaise.
Yeah.
The other factor is, I think we're all going to be interested in seeing the sonar study that is done
Right.
on the harbor and what is on the bottom of it and what could possibly interfere with the dredging equipment.
Can I, just
Cars.
one other comment, because you mentioned that you'd like us to, it seems to me, that the only spot that we've identified for a shuttle to go to is the parking area where the DPW, or that body of land. And maybe if you wanted to get going on something, is just to have a study done, pay for, have a study done with what could you do? What would it take to convert that body of that land to a parking
Wait,
lot?
are you talking about the sand pit?
Yeah.
Sandpit on pole deck.
So at this point, since you guys haven't really found a lot of problems, if there weren't that many problems, I don't think it's necessary to get, and you've identified that the DPW building could be a place for people to park or buses to park. And that seems up there that there would be, if you knew you were having a group coming, or if you're doing valet parking, that may be a place. But I don't think, I don't want to pay for a study.
Okay.
That we've talked about it at least for 10 years, and if it's needed. I know in the summertime, they're still storing, are they storing the lifeguard stands and stuff here now? No, they still go back there, but they're going to go back, or are they? They're not going back. Okay. Good. So that was one thing, areas used to store things in the winter, but in the summertime, most of the DPW equipment isn't there. But that's something, we'd have to talk to them about.
A lot of this beach stuff used to be out at the transfer station, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because my other thought is maybe this is just my own thought, maybe what's going to happen is the harbor gets dredged, and then we see how big a disaster it is from a parking point of view. And if it's really awful, it's gonna mandate some changes pretty quickly. But I understand your point of view. Maybe we just need to see how, what happens, see what the scope of the problem is, and then who's ever in charge at that point is gonna have to deal with it.
I think we all recognize, we've heard today that erosion is almost 5 feet a year. So I think we recognize and believe that it's probably inevitable that eventually the White Crest lot is going to have to look at it.
There's
And like
plans for it,
that, I think we can anticipate with dredging and the great number of parking spaces that are provided now for businesses at the pier. I think we know what Will has referred to, that it is the elephant on the road that is coming. And I think everybody has to be aware of alternative sites. And I agree with the one Will identified, because I've looked at that as well.
The sand pit.
Short hop to town, convenient, and could be sizable.
Yeah.
And the DPW does have more land up by the transfer station too, so, yeah. No, I mean, that's in the back of everybody's mind. At this point, I don't think we need it, because you guys aren't suggesting a shuttle.
No, but I do think,
You
yeah,
need a
it has to
shuttle
be
there.
reserved, though, for future,
Yeah,
don't let
it's not
anything
going
be.
anywhere. Although that area may be underwater.
Yeah.
It's not far above. Okay. Enough of that for tonight. I'll try to come up with another summary sheet. Again, if there are points that you want me to put on it, please send me something.
Okay.
My pleas have been fairly hollow so far, but if you're happy with what I'm doing, that's fine.
Well, I think you've done a good
Yeah.
job
I
with
do
the
too.
preliminary conclusions that you've drawn. They're right on target. And if we can polish them up and round them off,
Okay.
we're in good shape.
Excellent.
Okay, Survey Monkey, Wayne, do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, we're continuing the service until Bruce determines that we're done with it, I guess, and I've questioned him, unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight, but I think for another month or two, it's just, do we plan to use it next year, that kind of thing? We should probably look into an annual subscription if you're going to do that. So far, it's been about, I think it's like $300 or $400 so far that I've been charged for it, but, and you can get an annual license for like $700 or something like that. But
It's surprising to me that the town doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. So is it where it has to be specific for each business, or like the library as opposed to the beach?
you can have a license and set up a variety, like we have
Yeah.
five different surveys in it, but,
Because the library uses it, Pres Hall isn't ours, but Pres Hall uses it. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I get Survey Monkeys
Yeah, if,
at least twice a year.
yeah, but if the town, so the question is,
For the
if the
for the
town
town to
had
have
a
it, yeah.
license, could it be used by, say, like the
For a
library? Not
variety.
necessarily Pres Hall, but, because they are an independent entity, right?
guess
But
can-
if you had, like, we need to look at this, I wonder what, you would have it there to be able to do a study, narrow,
Yeah.
wide,
I think housing had a Survey Monkey.
They do.
right?
let's say that, they might be just doing a one-shot or hiring a
I'm
third
sure
party
they
to
are.
do
No, I
it.
think they are.
Yeah,
So
we did it
that's a good-
internally, thanks to Bruce,
Open,
but,
Open Space had one a few years ago.
Yeah, we've used them a lot, so.
yeah, Bruce indicated if he were charging this as it would have been $10,000 or $15,000 cost for what he has done for us.
Well,
so.
that's, yeah, so we
So
should look into
if we
that.
can transfer it to someone else, I mean, we were short fused when we started. We addressed Dan and said, what do you have? And they said they had constant contact and a few other things, but no one ever mentioned the town anywhere used Survey Monkey, so we just had to proceed, you know? It's just one of those things.
Yeah, but it would be good to have the town have an account that could be accessed, yeah.
So I can look into transferring the data to someone that already has it. Now, Pres Hall not a town entity, it's a private entity, but if the library has it, I suspect we could piggyback on theirs.
No, there's a number, no, they don't have it.
They don't have it.
They have the same thing where they're using it once and paying for it. 'Cause
Okay.
that's
Yeah, if
been a
they have an issue, they
consideration
will.
when they brought it up. So,
But it may be used
We could-
more
if-
if people thought
yeah.
they could get,
if we have a yearly subscription,
yeah.
it probably would be used more.
And you just need someone that,
Meetings, I don't know if, that's not really meetings, but, what's the one they use for meetings? There's always the, sign up so everybody can get the same date and same
yeah,
time.
go to meeting, or.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, well,
Well, all right, so for the time being, we'll keep it going, then once, Bruce and I will discuss when to shut it down and what to do. You can convert the information into Excel files, that type of thing, but I don't know if you can re-import it again and compare 2 years or something like that. So it's been very useful, and I think it, it's been well worth the
so
the
we'll
funds.
wait to hear you and Bruce come
Yep.
to some sort of
Can I ask one
recommendation.
question?
Yeah.
Have you been, in earlier discussions, I think you went out of pocket for certain costs. Have you
Yeah,
been
I-
reimbursed for that?
No, I haven't been reimbursed for anything yet.
think
I haven't
that
really
he
put
should
in
be.
for it, so.
I do remember Janet saying she'd pay for it about
Yeah,
10
Right.
meetings
They
ago.
paid for our mailing. They paid for our mailing in the, $750 for the mailing to the taxpayers.
I think you might be talking about MailChimp and not SurveyMonkey. Is that possible?
I'm just talking about any time you get something on your computer and they want you to fill it out. I don't know, there's a couple different,
Because I think
Businesses.
MailChimp is the thing where that's like your monthly newsletter or whatever.
Yeah.
This is like strictly survey stuff, so I'm not sure, I don't know what else are we
Just
going to
apply it
ask?
to my
I'd
tax.
just like to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that,
we'll talk
Will,
about it.
we as a, whatever we are, task force, did make a recommendation to the select board that they should reimburse Wayne.
yeah,
So we're on record for
yeah.
that.
Well, the committees, as a matter of practice, get a stipend.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, have you asked
Well, only at these meetings, they bring it up, and I just sort of say,
at these meetings, but have you, I mean, I just assume you'll go, just go to Dan,
what's it?
go to the town
I can
administrator.
talk, I mean,
and
it's
ask.
not like the end of the
Well,
year.
okay, if you give me a bill, I
All
will
right.
bring it in,
I'll
okay?
just send you the SurveyMonkey bill. I mean, there's a lot of things that we had supplies and
Yeah, sure.
boards and
Sure.
clipboards and all that stuff. I'm
Yeah, I
just
know.
writing that
We've-
off
we've
because
talked, yeah.
I'm giving it to other town functions, like the police and other people that may want to make use of it. Most of the stuff we bought for the beach survey was not of much value, but, some of that stuff the library can use, so.
Well, and really, the beach department has money too, you
Yeah,
know?
well, Suzanne has made it clear it's not coming from her.
Oh, she
Yeah.
did make that clear, okay. Love it. And yet half of this is about beach parking, so,
All right,
okay.
We'll figure it out.
moving on.
It's not the end of the earth.
Right.
next question is planning for the forum
Forum.
presentation. I'm not in any rush, Sheila, but we'll do what the board wants to do.
I think we have to have our conclusions to the board and maybe even some kind of response before we do that, but.
Well, you know what my feeling is to sort of present the findings, like these are our general observations, this is what came out of our work, and we're gonna be going to the Board of Selectmen, and, we could kind of feel pretty solid about, there's, we don't have that much to recommend. And as we have things that have been recommended, they've been mostly Suzanne, and she's kind of implemented as we've gone along, the suggestions that kind of came up, and they have proven to work for now. They've been good little Band-Aids out there to make things work better up at the beach, and the Beachcomber's doing their thing, but these are the problems down the road, and this is what we definitely see. What's people, just sort of present what we have and say, is there any feeling on this?
I would recommend that if we do that, the presentations on the surveys be quite brief,
Yeah,
summaries,
right.
Yeah,
handle questions.
And we might be able to, there might be something very interesting that comes out of that conversation that we can then say, from your townspeople, this was a general feeling as we presented this. I mean, I can tell you right now how, what our feedback was from a forum.
I think,
And it could help us maybe even refine a solid recommendation.
Danny and I discussed that we thought that a full forum meeting just on parking may not be enough data to fill up the thing, but maybe we could tie it in with an update on the dredging or something along that line, which is somewhat related.
Well,
No
I think,
problem with having a short meeting.
no, there's nothing wrong with having a
Okay,
short
all right.
meeting that's concise and informative. And I do think it's important for people to hear the issues that are confronting the marina, because that is a vital resource to us, and in many ways, not just parking, but for all kinds of things. And people depend on it. So I think they need to learn to love it and appreciate it, and see that there's going to be a collision up ahead.
We'll give them time to prepare their case as to why they feel they're an important priority.
That's right.
So when are we gonna deal with the forum?
So
We're open in October.
what day, I mean, obviously, the forum meets every month?
We can put the date, whatever
Okay.
suits people. What we say is if you want it on this month, then we ask you to give us a couple of dates when you know whoever we're going to be hosting, you know who the players are that you want to have speaking. It's your job to get, confirmations that they're available this night and this night. These are the 2 nights we could do it. I then go and secure a room, and then we get out we make sure that we're saying, this is what this is about. Like, that you're approving this sort of, PSA out there that we're having a forum on this, and this is what we're covering, right? Okay. And then
Well,
we get that out.
Denny has provided the framework
Right.
for our conclusions, and we've refined them further today.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps in one more meeting of this group,
Okay.
we can finalize them and then be in a position to present them at the forum.
Okay.
I think we just have to give enough time, since we're not going to be doing it while most of the non-residents are around, to notify those organizations that it's occurring, but also give them an opportunity to send in questions. And obviously, they can view it on TV, so
They
it's...
can, yeah,
so
or if they want someone to show up.
I think just like to give them time to give some commentary if they want. It may be the response we get from like the people that are transients, we get, 51 people out of 4,000 people respond, but
Well, I'm leaving town on October 31st.
For how long? For
Depends
the
on-
winter?
6 months?
Just for a couple of weeks.
Until the forum's over.
Just a couple of weeks.
going hunting.
So there's time in November, we could do it at the end of October, if you're up for that.
I think Denny has to be here.
And
so.
then Denny has to be here so that we could move it to December or something if you want, but.
No, I'm just, if we have one more meeting, I can be ready in
Okay.
October.
Okay, so we'd have to have our meeting, in 2 weeks, a week?
How much time do you need, Denny?
To do what?
Well,
To put a presentation
I
together?
think you were going to take your framework
That's
and our
what- exactly, yeah.
comments today.
No, I'd like to keep the pressure on and be ready to talk about it on the 16th, which would be our next scheduled meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, but.
so we could look at tentatively the end of the month.
Yeah, but I would think in terms of, we ought to have some sort of, just thinking, some sort of agenda for the forum, we don't want to be just all over the
No,
place.
I agree. It should
We
flow
really
in a
got to centralize
logical-
what what are the key issues of the beach, in town, and the pier, the harbor, and not be.
Right,
Well, if we adopt a format of a brief overview of the surveys and then present our conclusions, people are then in a position to respond to that with questions.
right, and help
I
us.
think that would flow.
Yeah.
That's,
and-
that's really where I thought I was headed with this. And that's why I had, general conclusions up front and then
Okay,
gave you all the survey data after that. And I'm not sure there's much out of the survey data that we need to talk about. That's fairly quick discussions.
I think most of the data came from the parking lot data, that's what, and the commercial vehicle, that's where we learned the most.
Okay,
It would be, yeah, I just
So
think
the
it'd be interesting to hear
16th,
what
Denny?
people.
yeah, meeting here the 16th. What about a starting time?
5 works for me, and I thank you
5
all for
works for
putting
me.
it for 5. I do appreciate it.
All right,
And that, okay. Item 10, we've already covered, I think. Items to put on the,
yep,
Okay? All right, so the 16th, and
5 o'clock. I'll get the space here, I hope.
so at this meeting, we would have this group, and you would like to have Lieutenant Hurley there?
Oh, yeah.
And who else? Suzanne?
Suzanne, yep.
Yeah.
The forum on the 16th?
No, we're not, our meeting is on the 16th. We would probably be having the forum, the week later or 2 weeks later. It all depends on when we can get everybody together. But,
what are they usually, 7 o'clock?
yeah, 7, it
Denny,
would be 7 to 8.
Might we have you, before the 16th, email to us your draft after today, so
Yep.
we can save time by going over it,
Right,
and then we can meet and finalize it.
yeah.
I'll just comment that I know some people concerned with us having communications offline. We are not making any decisions offline.
No.
We are not deliberating.
No.
We are just doing our homework.
You just share
And
information.
if somebody wants to really fuss about that,
They can look at all the emails. There's nothing
Yeah,
said.
no,
That's a conclusion.
I think we've been very careful not to discuss.
No.
You send something, and I don't respond in
No.
a substantive way. I just get what you say, all
Right.
right, we'll discuss it when we're here. So I think we've done a very good job.
It's a homework assignment,
Yes,
without any interaction.
yes.
And most of the
okay, well, I'll get something out, I hope, next week.
Okay,
And we can all comment on it, and we'll meet on the 16th here at 5 o'clock.
excellent.
And still keeping the select board report in mind. You don't mind if we go to the forum first?
Yeah, don't you think that would be a good thing? I mean, to hear what the feedback was from the forum as well?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. No, I think it's, the forum is a good presentation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, I just turned my microphone off to save battery power. But, one of the things that's important is a lot of these committees come out of people complaining about, we meet shuttle buses, there's no parking, people are waiting in line for hours. And to find out that these are not really valid or that often.
Not that, you can't live with, you can live with it.
Yeah.
And
So I think
that's
that
certainly
would
been a
be
big
great way to
conclusion.
present, And that the traffic at Cocoon Hollow, Ocean View Drive has been with the police there and people at the beach going working there. It's not as crowded and as
Right.
dangerous as it was.
No, I think,
Janet, regarding the presentation to the select board, would you foresee us presenting our conclusions like we are to the forum, and then open it up to questions from the board and the audience?
Just like you did at the beginning,
June, yeah. We did that in June, I think, yeah.
Or the very beginning of this meeting, and then suggestions, and Steve also mentioned concerns that you might have, like the future, and the
no, it,
ramifications of climate change and all that.
we might find some
All right.
interesting ideas.
Do I have to make a motion, or is somebody else?
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
I would second.
Okay, all in favor?